Hey, what's up, YouTube? It's Richie from Boston. It's the 6th. It's September. It's 2020. Can you guys hear me okay? Because I think my mic might be bumming out on me, but I'm not exactly sure. So there's that. It's 2020. Can you guys hear me okay? Oh, I guess you can hear me. So never mind. I think I'm good, right? At any rate, I'm good, right? Yeah, no. 5x5 says Young Love 420. Springmore says, yep. Lou Wally said, yep. Big G, yes, sir. Jennifer Russell says, you're good. Mike Decker can hear me in Wyoming through all that smoke, man. Unbelievable. I'm going to be mirroring a video that Mike Decker did. It's called Mountain Talk, and it is on point. And the video that he made to go along with it is straight up badass. The random chick said that she's here, so that's good. That's quite the thumbnail. Random chick, just saying. At any rate, truck stop, affirmative. Roger that. Cool, man. Cool. Stevie B. Cool. Jesus is my vaccine. Perfect. Indeed. All right, that is badass. I was gonna do a video, but I mean, I think I've done like 300 videos today, so there is that. Troy Rivas says, let her rip. Richie Singer said, Richie Rich. Indeed. Burning them down. Verdi Adams Sr. said, you're good, brother. Baton Rouge is in the house. Lady Liberty caught me live. Lady Liberty has left the building. Much love. I don't know what that means. At any rate. All right, cool. Singe Man. Yeah, I think some of us were born for this. And me and Mike Decker spoke about this face to face for a while, that I believe we picked to be here, or we volunteered to be here on Earth right now, no matter what our circumstances are, as far as family, obligations, jobs. Some of us can just remember, which is why we can see what's happening, because what's happening is flagrant, literally flagrant. I was talking to somebody today, and I'm fairly certain they're making sure that they're trying to show all the mask-wearing sheeple, because everyone's got a mask on. We're into September. This whole thing started back in March, and everyone's took the mask all over again. Still don't know anybody that died, et cetera, and they're running with it. This is absolutely amazing to me. This is the reconstruction, the breakdown of every person in the United States. Again, I was talking to Mike Decker on the phone today, and I mentioned this before. Several of us have mentioned this before. Australia is getting their ass kicked because Australia is an island. They don't have any bordering countries. They can't come in. They can't go out. The cops are beating the shit out of them. They're going to their doors. They're doing this. They're doing that. And yet the pregnant woman put out a video saying, oh, the cops were really nice to me after they arrested me and came to my door and dragged me away in cuffs. They were really cool. I guess. But the cops, actually, yeah, I did credit the channel, but when I put it up, they took it down on the other one there, Dia. I actually mentioned your name and talked about you at length there, Dia. Just FYI, just so you know that, even though I was just talking about Australia and you need credit. That's I can't stand hooking up other channels. Do you guys all remember me talking about this woman saying the videos are on her channel, et cetera, ad nauseum? And then I said, bear in mind, she might suck. I don't know her, but these videos right here are good. So there you go, Dia. There's your credit, okay? I will never mirror from you again. Don't worry about it. And I'm fairly certain you didn't make those videos. I couldn't find the actual link to the dude that did make them. So there's that. You know what? Now I'm pissed off. Stand by. Let's keep Dia's comment up because she wants Mike Decker. It ain't easy being Richie from Boston, and you saw that, didn't you? Stand by. You know what? I'll get to it when I get to it. Dia, you got to go. Goodbye. Yeah, credit was given and the link, and I spoke on it ad nauseum, but there you go. Yep, I sure did. Right, Mike? Right, Mike? Yeah. Couldn't find a link to that dude. And it's actually irrelevant that people need credit right now. Credit. Hey, the entire world, the entire earth, specifically starting in Australia, is being taken over right now. I need credit for using other people's information, for taking bits of other videos and making a video into them. I need credit for that. Yeah. There you go, homie. Yeah, I understand. It's in Melbourne, but they have to start out slowly because they need to see what the reaction is going to be from the public, if anything. In America, for the most part, there's only a few assholes like me that actually care that Australia is getting their foot put in their ass right now. But long story short, China, like I've told you before, China is a new world order country. Straight up. That's how it was created. That's how it was built up. That's how come all of a sudden they have all the money in the world. They have every secret we ever had was handed to them by a senator or a governor or whatever, so they could build a military that could actually take ours out because they have way more people than we do. And they're a little more hardcore than we are. You know what I'm saying? Anybody know what hardcore means? Ain't too much hardcore left. So there's that. China is a new world order country. They tell us all the time. China's testing missiles. China's going to do this. Dude, China is their creation. China is where they're probably going to go live after the United States is utterly and entirely in flames. That's my opinion. But they're starting with the New World Order conversion kit in Melbourne. You see what I'm saying? Because they're just kicking these people, Australia, New Zealand, and Taiwan, if I remember correctly, are what Bill Gates and his husband Melinda were talking about. If everyone did what they did, Australia, New Zealand, and Taiwan, they wouldn't have to worry about, they didn't get the pandemic, but then magically, suddenly, these people, if they drive too far from home, drones start attacking them. That's crazy. You know what I'm saying? You can only go out for an hour a day. People need to take off the mask, crumble it up, and put it in a trash barrel. Don't throw it all over the United States. That's getting pathetic, man. Take off your mask and stand up for yourself, no matter what the cost. If 10 cops come, believe it or not, one person with two hands and random household items can give 10 cops quite the hard time. But if everybody did that and they weren't afraid of getting their ass kicked or their nose broke, the cops would think twice about bum rushing people, wouldn't they? That's what it's going to have to come to. That's what I mean when I say stand up. I haven't worn a mask yet. I won't wear a mask. I wore a bandana one time back in the beginning because I didn't want to have any static going into a store to get ice cream. But then the longer and further this kept going, it just disgusts me when I see people wearing masks, which is everybody. It is unbelievable to me. It's September. People are across the street at the ocean on Labor Day wearing masks. It disgusts me. It makes me hate them. And that sucks because you're supposed to love thy neighbor. I suck at that anyways. You know what I mean? But people need to stand. This is not going to get any better. This is going to get exponentially worse. And now, every few videos I've mentioned the darkest winter because they talked about it for 3 days and then it disappeared. And then I discovered that the guy that actually brought it up, Richard Bright, I thought that was funny. Like, it's going to be dark out, says Richard Bright. You get it? Dark, bright, etc. Well, apparently he was an ex-vaccine czar. I didn't know that. He was an ousted vaccine executive. He's the one that told us it was going to be the darkest winter. And magically, a couple of months ago, Department of Homeland Security started quacking about North Korea, terrorists, bad guys are going to hit us with an EMP. And then again, the other day, they re-released it again. I believe I put that video up. It was on September 2nd. I believe September 2nd, they're saying right in time for the election, there could be an electromagnetic pulse. Well, I'll tell you what. I bet you the EMP, if it's real, is going to come from the Starlinks that Elon Musk has been shooting into the sky like fireworks on the 4th of July. If America was actually a free country and we were celebrating our independence, but we don't because it ain't. So there's that. I think that these things are absolutely multifaceted platforms. Like I said, me and Mike saw them. We tried to videotape them not once, but twice, and we couldn't because they don't allow you can't focus on them. You can focus on a star, you can focus on a planet millions of light years away. I'm being sarcastic, but you can't focus on this thing. And I'll tell you what, every time I've seen this thing, it looks like it's looking at you. If you've seen Starlink and stood there and looked at it, I guarantee as it went over, one of the lights flashed at you incredibly bright and gave you the impression in your head that I see you, because it's happened to me, it's happened to Mike, it's happened to others. So it's absolutely crazy. So there is that. Don't hate society necessarily. Yeah, text me while I'm live streaming. I love that. It's my favorite thing ever. Great. Stand by. Hold on, people. I got a very important text from one of my subscribers, I'm sure, that decided I found your number. So, yep. Hey, brother, I have a whole new property which has a bunkhouse and food for a year. Awesome. I'm not going to tell you my name. You didn't give me your number. And you hate when people contact you. So I'm going to do it while you're live streaming. So whoever 1-928-910, you can guess the rest. Whoever you are, you're an asshole and you're blocked. All right? It's so unbelievably rude that people would text somebody that never gave you their number in their entire life. I can't possibly explain how much I hate when my phone rings or when somebody I know texts me, let alone when some jerk off texts me while I'm live streaming and it keeps doing it, keeps hear it, ding, 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 and doesn't bother to even say, hey, this is my name. Wow, what a fucking asshole. See that? I just swore. And now you're blocked, jerk off. Goodbye. That's phenomenal. That's phenomenal. Phenomenal. Okay, stand by, guys. This one's good because this is Days of Noah. I'm going to get him in. He's making some tea and he's going to hop on. He's so cute. I don't mean that in a gay way. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I'm just kidding. Gay people are going to burn in hell. It's the new Sodom and Gomorrah. Stand by. Let me send this link to Days of Noah because I want to see what's going on the West Coast. And then I'll get back to yelling at subscribers. I'm just kidding. I'm not yelling at subscribers. But I mean, that's incredibly rude. You know what I'm saying? Everybody decides to text me. A couple of other YouTube channels just texted me too while I'm clearly live and have been for 15 minutes. Okay, so where are we at? Let's do this. Let me go through these links real quick. Days of Noah's going to jump in and we are going to go. I put this video up. This Dr. Carrie Madai, I think is her name. She's a doctor, for real. And she, in this video, basically explains Moderna and everything else that I already told you and a couple of others told you a long time ago. This vaccine is, I don't care what it is. Let's play puzzles. And is America Mystery Babylon? I don't care. America is under attack right now. And the attack's getting worse and worse. And nobody except like 7 of us are paying attention. So I'm going to put the riddles and the biblical questions aside for now. This woman has the balls to come out and literally say that the vaccine is indeed DNA changing, and it's the worst thing in the world. It is a push for transhumanism, period, straight up. The video is up on, I don't remember which channel because I got like 70 of them. Oh, it's up on this channel. So there you go. So I'm going to put the link in the chat right quick. Sweated my ass off today working on my truck. It is hot out, man. Crazy hot. Okay, this is what I wanted to compare this to. She's explaining to everyone exactly what I was explaining quite a while ago. It doesn't matter if it's Moderna, Inovio, it doesn't matter. All of them are funded by the Department of Defense. Why in the entire world would the Department of Defense be funding lots and lots and lots and lots of different companies trying to get a vaccine jammed into your arm and a couple jammed into the arms of your elderly family, loved ones, etc., that literally can change your DNA. You change your DNA, you are effed in the A. Don't do it, period. Don't do it, period. Now, imagine when it comes the time to say no to the vaccine. Dude, look how many people completely don't have the balls to not wear a mask. Well, if I don't wear a mask, I can't. Then don't. No matter what it is, then don't. Then don't. If you're a Christian, God will provide. Straight up. Period. One way or the other. It might not be awesome. It might not be comfortable. It might not be immediate, but it will come. Straight up. I'm telling you. Ooh, I'm getting a little agitated here, or excited, or something to that effect. Yeah, there's no notification because I just went live. Like, I dropped my hat and then I went live. Yeah, I don't know why people keep putting that in there. It's starting to be annoying. All right, here we go. Days of Noah just jumped in. Let me bring him up because he will calm me down. Days, have you been listening?
I haven't, man. I literally
good because I've been
on my computer.
Sweet. I gave Days the same amount of notice I gave you guys, which was none. Said, hey, I'm going live in 5. You in?
I know.
I've been yelling at other YouTubers and subscribers that have been texting me during the live stream. So, how is the West Coast right now? Take all the time you need.
Well, we are having issues with electricity right now. The grids are being screwed with. I don't know what the heck they're calling them, but they have these partial shutdowns where they're literally shutting down certain regions for a matter of hours. So people are systematically losing power. And the excuse is it's to save power in case of crisis. But what crisis? You know what I mean? I feel like this is all incremental training to go without. You know what I'm saying? And of course, the fires, which have died down quite a bit. But outside of that, it's really more COVID hysteria, masks everywhere.
Everywhere, dude.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Unbelievable. So you're saying the fires, at least in your area, which is California, have died down because they're still showing up on the map pretty good here.
Oh, they're everywhere, but they're not as raging, at least in my area, not as raging as they were, say, 2 weeks ago. But yeah, they're not going away. I think if anything, they're spreading just in other areas. I've honestly been paying very little attention to it, just as long as it's not coming too close to where I am at specifically. But I'm just prepared for this kind of thing. In my view, this is my view, Richie. I believe this is part of the reforestation of biodiversity of Agenda 21 and 2030. I believe this has a lot to do with literally burning people out of rural areas and pushing people into the mega cities, the smart cities, which are coming later. And that's at least my view. I think they are starting off with some of the main states as far as industry is concerned. California, of course. And I could be wrong, but at least in my view, this is how I'm seeing this, because these lightning fires, it just doesn't make much sense to me. And I do understand that they have ways of engineering the weather. So I don't know, man. It's creepy. It's alchemy in my view. A lot of this is alchemy. This is the elite system, the beast system, trying to play God and burn us out of our natural habitat and lead us into these technotronic mega smart cities.
You're absolutely on it. And when you mention that they have technology to control the weather, etc., myself and several other channels pulled up a ton of decade-old articles, patents, etc., where the military's been using lightning as a weapon for a long time and incredibly effectively. So Mike Decker lives on the West Coast. He lives in Wyoming, and he's familiar with wildfires, etc. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And he said that the amount that hit in the time frame is way too suspect. You know what I'm saying? It's just way too suspect. And then as soon as the Department of Homeland Security, those people that just love us and they're worried about our safety and security, when they put this out on the 3rd saying a potential electromagnetic pulse attack could come in order to ruin the election, and then magically the next day, California begins having rolling electrical outages because of the hot weather. I find that really suspect, man. We're in the middle of a completely unbelievable scenario. Days, I don't recall when the last time I spoke to you was. I listened to the live stream you and I did a few weeks ago. I listened to it on the way home from the West Coast. And the stuff we were talking about then is now reality and old news. What is it? What do you make of this, man? This just continued. Black Lives Matter, $1.5 billion, destroying things, knocking shit over, and then magically, the mainstream media brings up the police throwing a hood over a black man naked in the middle of the street in March to get it all going again. As soon as I saw that story, I didn't read it yet. I saw 2 cops putting a spit hood, because I've been locked up. I know what a spit hood is. People do spit when they're drunk or high.
Absolutely.
When I saw that dude in the middle of the street naked, the first thing that popped into my head was PCP. PCP, you take all your clothes off and you have superhuman strength. I'm not saying the cops didn't do it. I just found it incredibly irresponsible for the mainstream to put something from March back out again to get everything going again, because that night it got set off in upstate New York.
Is that the Rochester situation?
Yes.
Yeah. I've actually been tuning into those live streams. I've been collecting these riot / alleged protest live streams for about almost 100 nights now. And it's interesting. They seem to be replicated over the United States, and they all look the same. They all take notes from the Antifa organized group in Portland. And it's just very interesting how this is spreading like wildfire. It's this proxy warrior, proxy army situation where they're just pawns on the chessboard being used to create chaos and conflict. And of course, they always go back to the same old tactics of race bait, different forms of racial conflict, old wounds that have been part of the interracial experience of America since America has been America. And I understand why these things work, because there is a legacy of discontent, especially between races. In America, there is this history that has never been properly addressed. There has definitely been inequality and oppressive systems throughout the generations. Of course, I would argue that America is a lot more freer and less oppressive today than it's ever been, mind you. But these things still exist under the skin, right? They're still under the skin. They haven't been healed per se, and they use those wounds, they use those sensitive subjects to rile up massive groups of people. And now you have this this altruistic so-called liberal white so-called community that just wants to jump on board and save the black people. And it's just like, well, now you got your perfect proxy warrior group here, and they're really trying to stoke the flame to create I'd say a small scale or localized civil war.
I'll tell you what, I've been white for a long time, and for the most part, white people are lazy and easily frightened, and it's sad. It's sad. They won't stand up for themselves. So this whole thing is perfect. Watching these people bum rushing a sit-down outdoor restaurant, and the people that were sitting there were all white, and they freaked out. They were like, "Oh no, here it comes!" The protesters, quote unquote, are chanting and singing and knocking shit over and breaking stuff, but all the while saying, "White people, don't worry, we're not going to hurt you. We just want to, destroy this. It's our job, basically." I understand. and I'm not saying this from what I've seen or watching a video. I've met these dudes. I've been to these things. I've seen this when it happened last time around. I think it was like four or 5 years ago. I think, oh, the video isn't still up because YouTube took my channel down. My bad. What was I thinking? There's a lot of people that have a legitimate gripes that roll with Black Lives Matter, but they need to understand Black Lives Matter is funded better than most small cities. You know what I mean? They're getting serious bank from corporations. Why do you think that is? You know what I'm saying? They are a proxy army. You're absolutely right. The problem is, Jays, I want to say this right. I really do. The people that are in it for the outrage and the oppression and the fact that they grew up in a neighborhood where there is no jobs. There are only liquor stores, drugs from Colombia and other countries aplenty, guns, all that stuff are available. When they see stuff like on this news and they want to protest, it's awesome, but they have to understand all right, you know what? I can't even say it. How can you make them understand that they're in a proxy army that's being bankrolled big time? Did I say any of that right, dude? If I didn't, say so.
You did, and I know where you're going with this. You're saying basically that there are portions of society that are moved emotionally by the things they're seeing, and they do actually have, to a degree, I'd say reasonable or rational reason to feel this way and join in, because maybe they've lived hard lives, they've lived in poverty, and they've been treated like an underclass their entire life, which possibly in many cases is generational. You know, maybe their parents and their parents and their parents were part of this, and it seems to be the systemic oppression that they've experienced. And of course, this is their experience. This isn't to say all blacks experience this. I myself have not experienced that, so I'm testament to that. But I'm still saying here that there are many people that feel this is something that needs to be fixed. So they join in because they think this movement, they think this so-called fight, this justice, social justice, is going to mitigate the situation they're in and change things for the better. Okay, fine. We're never going to escape that. Now the question is, how can we wake these people up to the point where they realize that they're being utilized, they're being used as this battering ram? Because that's pretty much what we're seeing here. BLM is a battering ram for the Great Reset.
That's a great analogy, brother.
And that's what I've been trying to do, man. You know, I've been trying to. Now again, we are men of God. We worship Christ. We definitely are on the side of Christianity, and we go by the will of the Most High God, of course. But this isn't to say we aren't flesh human beings in the world and need to play some type of role in the world, especially with those who are lost. So we have to reach out to non-Christians as well, right? And that's one thing I've been trying to do with political understandings, sociological understandings, trying to get exactly what you're asking here, trying to get people to see what's really going on here. And possibly once you see that this society, this world is corrupt, you can come to the truth, you can come to Christ, right? So ultimately, that's what I've been attempting to do. How? Really just screaming from the rooftops, as you've been doing, you know, trying to expose the truth, especially in ways that can break down this racial science, this race bait, this type of very systematic abuse that we're seeing with the propaganda, with the media. It's tough, man. But I'm going to tell you, they're being very successful here, because what you have here with this BLM thing is it's very multifaceted. And for any honest person who really wants to understand what's going on here, you have to walk into this with some empathy. And I think that's one thing that is lacking right now, especially in the right and in the conservative movements, and for good reason. People are upset. People are being pushed to the edge, and that's part of this. Part of this is to piss white people off. Part of this is to piss the right off, right? Part of this is to get the conservative population to act as they want them to act, to become racists, to become belligerent, racist, so-called Nazis. They want to push the conservative movement to that end. That's their goal. And it is working in many cases. You are seeing people they're beginning to have resentment towards all things so-called black. And this is part of the chessboard. And I think if we can go in with a little more empathy and try to accurately look at this thing historically and see, well, hey, there are actual issues that have never been dealt with, and now they're just being used as a weapon by the political and governmental machine, the Masonic board, and of course in cahoots with media. But overall, if we could just go in and understand that all these people aren't like paid Soros
Right.
warriors, that some of this stuff has some semblance of authenticity, but overall there is an aspect of it that is probably most influential, that's pretty much running the whole show, and that's these crazy paid agents and provocateurs, and these I call them psychopathic youth out here who are just, they're lost, they have nothing to live for, they're nihilistic, they're atheistic, and they want to see things burn. They want, they want to watch society burn to crumbs. So you have a mixture of these crazy kids out here that have nothing to live for, and they're just angry at the world. They hate their parents, they hate their lives, they don't know what's the future is going to hold for them. This COVID thing has driven them to mental illness. So you have these crazy kids out in the streets, and then you have these paid provocateurs, and they're teaming up, and they are overpowering the genuine people that want social change. And I personally don't believe social change will ever happen, because I understand where this whole thing is going. But I do understand that a large population of people want to fight for social change. But at the end of the day, I hate to be black-pilled, but it ain't happening, man. This is all going in a certain direction for a certain reason. And I think if we could all figure out that we're being played, that would be a good start in at least creating some type of unity. And in my view, the only true unity is Christian unity.
I agree, man. That was quite the mouthful. So check this out. In my videos, you guys see how I do videos. Some people have actually watched me make videos in the same room. I don't have a script. I just spit it, and that's it. And sometimes the barium, strontium, and aluminum and everything else we've been ingesting over the years kicks in, and I lose my train of thought. But in videos, I've tried to make sure I separate the fact that Black Lives Matter is completely funded by George Soros and Bill Gates and all those other people. No, it's not. There are legitimate problems, like I tried to explain before Days took the mic. The problem is you've got groomed, trained, well-funded, charismatic people that step into the leadership role, that seem to know, line the barrels up in the middle of the street, set the fires over here, so forth, etc. It overshadows everything else. And I don't know if there's any way to reach them at this point, because every day this cabal that is pulling off this enormous hoax on humanity, they light another fire in this direction, or they go that way, or they go that way. I mean, they've got the media, they've got the mainstream, and they're taking us down one at a time, sometimes two at a time. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know, man. I don't know what, if anything, we can do at this particular point. And now they're threatening to knock out the power. And as soon as they say that, we start seeing evidence of it in large places like California, because Cali's always the first one.
Yes, it's frustrating, man, especially with the youth. When you watch some of these live streams and you see some of the posts, especially on Twitter, there's a guy named Andy No who has really been keeping up with the ear to the ground type of journalism that's going on with these Portland things, and it's just crazy, and it's frustrating. And I don't really think there's much we can do. I think this is just the system utilizing the misguided youth as a weapon. They are definitely being used as a massive weapon. And I think the left in general is being used as a weapon to bring down the entire system. Now, this isn't to say conservatism is going to win out. That's not at all the case. Eventually, everything is going to be crumbled, and we're going to be all forced to conform to the new normal, the new abnormal. But it seems to me that the left is being used in a type of unconventional warfare as a domestic terrorist organization. And it's interesting to see mainstream media lined up with this stuff. It's just they're so out in the open with it now.
Lockstep.
Yeah, it's fascinating to me. It's just, oh man.
Do I got the right guy up here?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's a good source for like up to date,
You don't
play
have
by
to give a,
play.
you don't have to give a disclaimer, brother. We need all the info we can get right now. As I was yelling at one of my subscribers, I'm guessing for texting me in the middle of a live stream and not even saying what their name was, Brian from High Impact Flicks also texted me. I haven't read it as of yet, but his channel got axed too. Same size as
man.
mine. Oh yeah. They took us out at the knees. They took me down, and the same night they suspended RFB too. So I couldn't even go on my backup and say, "Hey, they just took my main channel out." It was pretty good.
That's
Pretty
right.
good hit. Very well coordinated. So that was awesome.
The noose is gonna get a little tighter the closer we get to November. And I think, as you said with our other live stream, how a lot of things we said have happened. It's like we've been, and this isn't to toot anybody's horn, but we've been kind of calling these things out for some time. And I just think it's because we've been studying this stuff for years now, and we understand the end game.
Exactly. That's the thing. It's funny that you just said you started speaking and then you threw a disclaimer and saying, "I'm not trying to get credit. I'm not trying to toot." No, I said the same thing in a video last night. It's like, listen, once you understand what it is, we're not guessing anymore. You can read their literature on what they need to do to accomplish this, and they're doing it.
Yes,
they're secretly and slowly and methodically taking out massive food supplies in the background. They've got. I mean, it blows me away that Washington State still has people burning shit, knocking things over, because in a real world, if they didn't want that, it would be gone. But it's not. That's still cooking. And then they set it off in upstate New York with a simple headline. Look at this black man, police laughing and joking as they, I don't know if you're going to, he looked like a pretty big dude, man. And PCP makes anybody 5 times stronger. Ask me how I know.
It's true. It's
true, dude.
Turns people into high power, superhuman zombies almost. Yeah. You get really, really powerful and strong, and you don't feel pain.
Nope.
It's some serious stuff. Doesn't this whole situation, doesn't it kind of remind you of the whole Islamic propaganda we received post 9/11? Isn't it similar the way they're playing us? Remember,
expand that. What do you mean? Expand on that. What do you mean
remember in the early 2000s, say between 2001 and say 2007, right before Obama, we would always get these little stories about different forms of terrorism. These just little stories of Islamic terrorists doing these different acts throughout, and we would constantly be inundated with different media reports that is just pointing the finger at these terrorists, saying, fear these guys.
Like things like, they took over a certain town in Ohio and police are afraid to go there and they're training terrorists, and then the story would totally disappear.
There just seemed to be a terrorism, Islamic terrorism theme. There's just this media theme. Right, we're having the same type of propaganda, but it's a different theme. This time it's like the black man versus law enforcement theme, and we're just constantly getting these different stories that have this theme about racial strife, racial warfare, right? And we haven't seen anything like this since the 60s. As if racism just happened to show itself in the past 10 years. Right. It's so propagandistic, and it's so obvious to see the patterns. And this is why I had to repost a video I did from 2017 recently, because at the end of 2016, I saw exactly what they were doing. They were trying to create a neo civil rights movement. They were trying to put us back psychologically into 1968. And I was saying this in 2016, and 2020, we're right here. We're dead smack in the middle of 1968, psychologically, at least as far as what the media is telling us. And there's this trees, and then there's the forest. We're talking about the trees right now, the racism, the law enforcement stuff, the riots, Antifa, BLM. These are the trees. If we want to talk about the forest, we have to step back. We have to step back and analyze what's really going on, the bigger picture. Well, the bigger picture is the Great Reset, Agenda 21. That's the big picture. Now, the big aspects of the big picture, as you've stated, is the food supply, the energy grid. Of course, 5G plays a role in this. And then the big moving system of this all that's above the racism is COVID, because that brings in the biological warfare. COVID is the sociological, the psychological um, um, abuse or propaganda or social engineering. So the racism stuff is the lower end. Above that, we have the biological warfare, which is the COVID situation, all in cahoots and with the aim to bring this new reset. And of course, I think the main, like the big picture is taking away resources, restructuring the economy, changing the entire society. This is going to take time. This is going to take at least 5 years. Now they are traumatizing. And again, these are all my views. Okay. I'm just putting out my perspective.
Brother, you're good. You're good.
Now they are traumatizing us to beat us down such that we do not see the big picture. We do not see the big moves they're making. If you notice, 5G is going up everywhere. Okay, it's all over the place now. And if you noticed, their towers are smaller and they're kind of hidden. Sometimes they hide them. They look like trees, and sometimes they hide them, and so you can't see them. It's creepy stuff, right? So the grid is here, right? Now they have the algorithms coming. They have Neuralink has been coming out now. More about Neuralink is improving. The so-called vaccine is
Neuralace.
Neuralace, yeah.
Yeah, well, we can't confuse it with his Starlink that goes up every 25 minutes. You know what I mean? But go ahead.
Exactly. So I'm speaking to the neurological digital system, right? The Internet of Things, the internet, the worldwide brain, basically is what that system is. So that's starting to meet its fruition and development, right? So we have all of these big picture things going on while we're all at the bottom. All of the proles, all of the proles are at the bottom, fighting over racism and fighting for social justice, and fighting for backing the blue or defunding the blue. It's like we're all lost in the trees right now, fighting these little proxy wars, when actually the bigger picture, the forest is on fire, literally in some areas. And this is all with the goal to completely, and you've said this, we've discussed this, but to completely restructure society in a way that the population would never agree to or be prepared for otherwise. If it wasn't for COVID, if it wasn't for all of these racial psyops, the American people would not go for any of this stuff. But now we're so distracted, we're so torn apart between left and right, and blue versus black, and we're lost in the sauce. Right?
You're on it, man. You're on it. You're absolutely on it. I have never seen society. I never thought society could be whipped into shape the way they are. They are being changed. And I mean, I'm going to drop this, but I want to bring it back in. I even had this up for this exact topic, and here we are on it without even talking to each other. This right here is the Entered Apprentice Mason. This is your people are taking the rights, whether they understand it or not, to be citizens of the New World Order. You know what I'm saying? And it's all laid out right here. And I can't help but notice that the person playing the president of the United States right now was the host of a show called The Apprentice. You know what I'm saying? I just can't let that one slide by, because if you read this link that I have up right now, it makes a lot of sense what's happening to people. They know there's going to be a lot of people that aren't going to make the cut. People like myself, Mike Decker, and many, many others. We just can't do it. I can't contain my disgust for people wearing masks, even though I understand they're under a great delusion. But I don't know if I've asked you this before. I've asked you a lot of stuff. Before we jump back onto that link I had up on Amazon, that Kindle book by Klaus Schwab, that he wrote an entire book on the Great Reset, COVID-19, the Great Reset. We didn't know this was going to happen. We're just taking advantage of it. He explains in this book right here. He explains in this book that you can get on Amazon for $4 that COVID's nothing. It's not going to leave any mark on humanity. Nothing like, Spanish flu, nothing like that. But it's a chance to restructure society in the world completely. The dude is one of the top dogs at the World Economic Forum and Bilderberg, and he wrote this book, and it's available on Amazon, and it literally says, basically, COVID's no big deal at all. It's just a great opportunity. They're telling you people. The CDC comes out the other day and goes, oh, yeah, people, remember that thing we were telling you about COVID that was going to kill everybody? It was the worst thing in the world and blah, 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 blah. Well, 94% of the people that died, the Center for Disease Control, a privately owned company, came out and publicly stated 94% of the people that died were already really sick, meaning these people were sick and they died, and then we tagged them with COVID. And if you think that's just Richie from Boston or others telling you that, they've told you that. If they died of a pre-existing disease and we found out they had COVID, COVID it is. That's like a cop turning a B&E into a murder because he needs the stats. It's bullshit. It's wrong, and the sheep aren't seeing it. We talked before COVID broke out. You and I spoke about the externalization of the hierarchy, how back in 2019, it's like, wow, these dudes are just coming out with everything left and right. They don't seem to care. And then boom, COVID. It seems like they're at the point where they've got the sheep whipped into shape enough where they're actually telling them, by the way, there wasn't really a disease. We still got to give you a vaccine for your own good, for safety. But we got to change everything. No more borders, no more countries. We're going to defund the police. We've got our proxy enemies working on that to the point where you're actually asking us to get rid of the police, which will be perfect for our plan. Do you think, and I know you're a Christian man, I've heard you quote it, I know this for a fact, straight up, do you think that they literally did cast a spell?
Well, I think everything in opposition of the Most High God is a form of dark magic, is a form of a spell. Everything that is not of God is of Satan. So absolutely, I think the only way Satan really controls human beings, or at least the flesh, or in the way he entices the flesh and entices man to act in his will, is through different forms of spells and magic incantations and symbology and all of these different things. Masonry is a perfect example of this. I mean, look at all of the imagery, look at all the symbols, look at all of the rituals. I mean, all of this plays a role. We could look at the way the American governmental infrastructure is designed. You know, it's literally designed with satanic symbology. So absolutely, I think
everywhere. I mean,
everywhere,
carved in stone, dude.
Yes. So again,
it's amazing. I don't mean, it's amazing that most Americans don't question the obelisks all over the United States.
Yes, and
they just wow, look at that. That's from Egypt. Yeah, but why is it here? Are we? Is the story? Is his story that we're from Egypt originally? I mean, it's a trip, man. It's a trip.
Yes, it goes right back to Egypt, Babylon, Rome. Right, all of these things have never really left. They've kind of always been here. And of course, there's the argument of America's a Christian country. No. We've never been a Christian country as far as the forefathers are concerned. Now, our culture, the people, have definitely been influenced by, I'd say, arguably, a Christian ethic. Right, we have an ethic, an American ethic that is inherently Christian. Yes, that aspect I think is very true. I mean, where did Protestantism get its true growth and development? Right here in America. Right, we can look at many different historical eras where theology really took or at least really developed here in America. So there is a strong Christian component to America. But if we're going to talk about the country in the eyes of the forefathers, its development, its scientific experiment, of course not. This is an occultic, Masonic, I would say satanic type of or organized power here. And in many ways, America is an idea, but it's also a culture. It's also a group of people. It's generations. It has a history. It has a legacy. It even has intermixed and interwoven genetic lineage, right? So it's a very interesting and complex and convoluted story here in America. But if you're going to discuss it, you have to really address all of these different aspects of it, right? But again, if we're going to look at the forest here, yes, this is all a spell. This is all a massive, exaggerated magic spell here. And at the end of the day, coming to Christ, being in the Holy Spirit under the Most High God is the only true way out of this. It's the only true form of salvation. Everyone else has to rely on man in the world. So again, there's the forest and then there's the trees. We talk about them all. Okay, we cover all angles, all areas. So it's good to see all sides. And then we can look at history, right? We can look at the fact that this system has not only been designed to fail, but we're in its late stage. We are in late stage capitalism.
Right.
Right? We are in the end of all things that were so-called America are slowly coming. So yeah, there is all types of inequality. There's poverty. Now there's all types of horrible things that have resulted from the years of this laissez-faire, just free for all we've been living in as Americans, as modern people. It's dwindling, right? There's more chaos. This was always going to happen. So these leftists and liberals and progressive have somewhat of an argument, right? Because they're like, look, man, everything's falling apart. We need a reset. And it's unfortunate because they kind of have an argument for a reset, right? They're like, look at all the poverty, look at all the ghettos and the barrios and all the impoverished people of color. We have to change this. This isn't fair. Look at all the 1%. Look at New York. Look at California. Look at Silicon Valley. Look at Wall Street. Look at who owns the majority of all resources. It's a very small percent of man, and they would say white men, right? It's a small percent of cisgender white men owning everything. This is wrong. We need to change this. We need to flip this on its head. They have an argument there, right? A lot of people are suffering because of this. That's the frustrating part. Now, if we look at history, we could see that, well, the American I'd say the American academic and intellectual culture has transformed generation to generation. We could look at the progressive era, the early 1900s. Then it was more scientific, right? It was more about biology. Everything was genetic determinism, right? We had this very science kind of base, because that's when I'd say the scientific revolution is really starting to solidify. And that's when we had eugenics, right? That's when eugenics started coming on. Everything was based on biology. Then at the end of the progressive era, we had the liberal era. And I think Gunnar Myrdal is a good example of when this kind of started. But everything became liberal and progressive, not progressive, but liberal in the sense that things became more socially important. Instead of scientific, things became, what the heck is
You guys having an emergency, dude?
What is that?
I can hear it from here.
Oh man, wildfire, huh? Hold on. Yeah, it's another fire.
Is it in your hood?
No, not nearby. Anyhow,
right. Go ahead. Keep
sorry
going
about that, man.
That's nice. It's life, man.
The liberal era really messed things up because everything became social, and that's when the futurists started to come out. I think good examples of this is Alvin Toffler and the Future Shock, even Kenneth Boulding in his work. They would talk about, you know what, we need globalism. And of course, this goes right back to the old Bertrand Russell arguments. You know, there's wars. Look at all the wars. Look at Vietnam. Look at World War I and II. You know, actually, if we're going to stop war, if we're going to create equality, we need to have a global system so everything could be fair, right? All of these futurists made these arguments. And now this is all coming true. This is all meeting fruition. So when I read Klaus Schwab of 2018, it reminds me of Kenneth Boulding of 1968. I mean, it's the same type of futurist globalist arguments. And so when we look at historically, when we look at the intelligentsia, the intellectual kind of base of thinkers who really shape culture, they've always been talking like this. Now, of course, the majority of the population don't read this type of literature. So they're not aware of where America is going. But honestly, we've been talking like this. And when I say we, I mean intelligentsia, even though I'm not part of that. It's American, right? The American intelligentsia have always been, especially since post-progressive era, have always been discussing about these new liberal, globalized ways of facing the problems of the world and, of course, the problems of nationhood. They want to destroy the nation state. They want to destroy the sovereign individual or the sovereign citizen They basically want to destroy sovereignty altogether and bring in a type of communistic slash technocratic globalized network digital grid system. That's really what this all is turning into. And COVID has been the perfect opportunity to shackle every single person, stop them in their tracks, and subdue them to the point of slavery. And we're seeing the perfect example of this by the wearing of masks, people going and getting tested for something that doesn't exist. I mean, it's absolute madness. But when you see the forest, you realize, oh, I get it. I know where all of this is going. And they've been talking about this for decades. So really, it's nothing new. It's just surprising how quickly it's happening.
Like
Even the old futurists
like
weren't.
a thief in the night, dude.
Thief in the night.
You read this, correct?
This is the COVID-19, the Great Reset. I'm not even aware of this. Is this
Well,
a
I'm
new?
gonna
Is this
send
a
it to
new
you.
piece of literature?
It's on Amazon. Look at this, dude. It shows the exact. It shows everything. This is the entire game plan. You got the macro reset that starts with the conceptual framework, which is telling everybody there's a pandemic, go lock in your house. Then the economic reset by nobody's got a job, nobody can go to a store anymore, etc. And it keeps going and going and going right down to resetting or redefining your humanness. Everybody should spend the $4 one way or the other to read this, or maybe I'll get it and figure out how to print it, because I don't think homeboy right here needs our money as bad as he might look like he does. But this is flagrant. It's blatant. It's unbelievable, man. It's unbelievable. They're coming. Like, I mean, I don't know how closely you've been following. I know it's hard to find me these days, but I mean, I'm pulling out documents that they're releasing showing it at the UN, the final act of the UN's virtual concert to support this. The entire virtual concert was one eye symbolism, Baphomet symbolism, and armed blue helmets marching around, dancing and singing, talking about closing borders in a new world order behind closed doors. It's still up on their website right now. They're using the words. You know what I'm saying? It's amazing to me that sheep aren't looking into this, man, at all. They're perfectly happy doing as they're told, apparently not worrying about the fact that the American dollar got destroyed when this first happened, and they're just printing and keeping things floating right now. But that shoe is going to drop. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
They're changing all of this. And dude, this guy right here, he's got no problem with it. His book right here on Amazon, $4. You'll know the whole plan. He literally lays it out. He's saying COVID's not a big deal. It's just a good opportunity to instill Agenda 21, which will lead to Agenda 2030, Agenda 2050, et cetera, so forth and so on. So it's a trip, man. It's a trip watching all this, dude.
You know, the sad part about this is when you really think about it.
The sad part?
The sad part.
I'm joking.
I get it.
Need a little levity.
Well, one of the many sad aspects of this is that when you really think about it, especially when you just address some of the history of America, you realize America has always been, as they said, a dream. You know, when you think about the say from the 20s to the late 40s or 50s, I mean, these were probably the only real parts that people could say were actually so-called American, but that was several decades, right? Since the inception of America, we've always kind of been degrading in a way, even though people might want to make the argument we've been progressing or developing into a great nation. That's been a lie. That's been a deception. I mean, we could look at the beginning of the Fed. It's almost to say that everything has been on the downward spiral since then. We can look at, of course, the Great New Deal, or the New Deal with FDR creating the welfare state. We could definitely look at that. We also could look at Nixon and all the horrible things he did economically in the country. So there's just been all of these different examples. I'm sure the audience could give plenty more. I mean, we've been getting nailed. Forever.
Just bouncing off what you just said. Before you started this, you said the American dream is over. And I quickly typed in and pulled this up because once again, here's somebody that concurs with you. And of course, it's the World Economic Forum. They just put this up 5 days ago.
Wow.
This is what's called a harbinger, people.
Wow.
This is them talking to each other. You just said the American dream is over.
Oh, wow.
That's the World Economic Forum, which is, once again, goes right back to the other dude that wrote the book, COVID-19, Klaus Schwab. You know, it's just, dude, they're not hiding it anymore. This is really, literally happening, and they're using everything at their disposal. And apparently their bench is deep, dude. Their bench is deep, man.
Yeah. It's just happening way too fast. I guess that's my biggest issue. It's not
I'm hip. And the thing that gets me is in any type of a con, a scam, a hoax, the longer it goes on, the more people become wise to it and walk away and recognize it for what it is. These people that are perpetrating this, as time goes on, keep telling you to do one thing, but on the other hand, they're showing you things like this. They're writing books explaining it. They're literally showing you the cards that this indeed is a scam, and people still aren't waking up. This is their cosmic justification for, well, then they deserve what they're going to get. But meanwhile, people like me, you, and the people in the chat and your subscribers and others are getting caught up in the mix here.
Yes. Well,
you know what I'm saying? And one more thing before I let you roll. Everyone says America was built on Christian values. I'll tell you what. I'm 52 or 53. I don't know. I'm older than 50. How's that? I grew up in a Catholic United States, man. I didn't learn about Christianity till I was like 40. Everybody was Catholic. Catholicism, it ain't good, man. That's the Pope and the Lucifer room downstairs at the Vatican and all the little kids. Just saying.
Yes, regional Christianity. That's true. Certain regions were Catholic, certain regions were Protestant, neighborhoods even, you know, of course, with the mixture of different ethnic communities, Irish communities, Russian communities, etc. There's always been a soup of religiosity in America, of course, but I like to say Christian ethic, meaning that the foundational moral worldview of Christianity has somewhat defined American culture as far as the people are concerned. If we're going to discuss the governmental bodies and those in power, that's something different. But as far as many of the communities of Americana have definitely portrayed, practiced to a degree Christian ethics, right? So it's confusing. America is a big confused stepchild of England in a sense. It's just. And another thing is we've been deceived by democracy. We've been deceived by this idea of democracy. We've been sold an idea of democracy when in fact we've been under an oligarchy since day one.
Right.
And we've been sold this American dream, this lie of democracy. And also we've formed through a type of successful capitalistic society. We've developed a middle class. Now we've been developed into a largely middle class defined country or nation state. So when you created such a thing, out of that comes culture, a rich American culture that is very diverse. Okay, regionally, religiously, it's diverse. It's diverse.
Yo, your mic's going out, brother.
Sorry about that. It's diverse, but it exists. There is a type of Americana that exists, and it is, I think, defined by American middle class. Now, we've seen the destruction of the middle class over time, and now we're seeing the death of the middle class. And I argue that this has been the design from the beginning. Democracy was never meant to be. The middle class was never meant to survive. The problem is we as American people have just become accustomed to this life. We've become accustomed to this because it's a culture we've developed. It's our identities, right? This middle class life. Now, of course, there's lower middle, upper middle, but you get what I'm saying, right? There's been this slow developmental systematic and incremental destruction of the middle class. And with the destruction of the middle class comes the destruction of the Christian ethic. And it seems to be the case like they must destroy these things in order to bring in the Great Reset, the New World Order, because the Great Reset, the New World Order, technocracy, this new abnormal world of digital technocratic lifestyles and infrastructure, it relies on an atheistic or amoral nihilistic perspective. It relies on that as far as worldview is concerned, but it also relies on atomization. It relies on this type of narcissistic hyper individualism, where everyone is plugged into their very specific subjective worlds through digital media. So this new system is contradictory and anathema to a Christian family-based culture. It won't work with this type of dynamic, which is what we as Americans have developed over time. Right. So it's very easy to see if this great reset, if this atomized technocratic narcissism is the future, how is wholesome Christian family-based ethic culture of the middle class going to survive? Well, it can't. So this is why we're being systematically broken down. In fact, we're being broken down by groups like Black Lives Matter, which is absolutely against the role of the family, promotes homosexuality and transgenderism, and is, of course, is stoking the flame of this false sense of racial oppression in America 2020, which doesn't really exist at all, mind you. It really doesn't. But they're doing all of this to break down systematically all that which has defined America for the most part, which is a type of middle class, family based nation. Right? It's sad. It's very sad and unfortunate. But when you look at the history, it's all been lined up for this to happen.
When you before they could pull it.
We've been lied to, man.
Oh, no doubt about it. And it's amazing how much time you can spend spinning your wheels about how much we have been lied to. It was difficult trying to stay focused on what was important. Fortunately, COVID snapped everything right into view. You know what I'm saying? No problem. But now all these things make sense. Where we talked about this before, man. The transgender freak show drag queens reading storybooks in every small town in America. Every small town. The Church of Satan rolling around with their 9-foot Satan thing that I videotaped when I walked into their church. Every place the 10 Commandments were, they would roll that thing up, cause a scuffle until something came down. They slowly wore down the true Christians, and now here we are. They did it from every angle. The LGBTQ. When that wasn't enough, they went transgender, then transhuman, and people marrying toasters and stone walls and exhaust pipes. It's amazing how much people let slide. And now here we are, man. Here we are. And it does not seem like the majority that we would need are waking up anytime soon. Not from what I saw in the last 4 days. 4 days in America. Put it that way, because I was on the road for a while. But man, everybody, I'm the only one not wearing a mask, and you literally walk down the street and feel like you just stole something. You're waiting for someone to grab you because they caught you. It's crazy, dude. It's absolutely crazy, man.
It is. We're being turned against each other.
No doubt.
Yes, and this is part of atomization. What this does is it puts you in a bubble, literally. Actually, they're advertising. I got sent this ad. They're advertising these like plastic bubble things you put on your head. It's like straight out of some
I've seen
science fiction film.
Wearing them. I've seen it in action. It's crazy.
It's crazy. So this speaks to this atomization, turning us all into little separate atoms in our own little bubbles. How are we going to create families? How are we going to create loving, real relationships, meaningful, authentic relationships? How are we going to experience emotion and intimacy? How are we going to create communities? Right? How are we going to have a nation?
That question is moot because according to the authorities, the people that own this world, there's too many of us anyway, so this all works out well.
Exactly, right? They have all the arguments against it. So basically, the family, the nation state has to go. It's because again, we are being ruled by technocracy and mainly technology. Technology are not concerned with you or your family. They're concerned with you as a subject, or should I say as an object to consume. We are just objects to be used to consume media and content and products. This is basically what all of this turns into. When you read these futurists, they talk about human beings as if we were just these little
Batteries.
batteries. Exactly.
Dude, it's the Matrix. It's every movie you ever saw growing up coming to life. It turns out those weren't entertainment. Those were actually, training videos. We just didn't know it at the time. But I mean, that's where it's at. I wonder if that's what it is. They need a certain amount of people. They've already made they've made their position more than clear over the years with things like the Georgia Guidestones.
Yes.
Where they need to reduce humanity down to 500 million.
Yes. And it's insane. And the interesting part is they don't really have to kill off people. We're not making children anymore.
Right.
We're not even having babies. We're killing ourselves off due to culture. We're due to this narcissistic, atomized lifestyle that's being promoted through Generation Z. Relationships aren't existing anymore. People are now getting their emotional needs from indirect, detached social media engagement. A lot of these young girls today are just getting high on likes and thirst traps, as they call them, and people drooling over them in their pictures. They don't need relationships anymore because now they're living through this type of detached narcissism. Right. And so we're not having relationships. Marriage is down. Depression is up. They are taking away our humanity. There's a really good book called Together Alone. And it's fascinating when you read some of these scientists talking about how AI has been produced and robotics and what it's going to do to the human over the next 20 years. And they are literally re-engineering society and human beings to be non-human. They want us to become machine-like. I say software. The body's the machine, and our intelligence, our thinking process is the software. And we're literally, as far as they're concerned, we're turning into this. Someone had asked, you pulled it up, Deborah Johnson, I think. She said, who's going to want to live in a world like this? No one does, and no one wants to. And that's not the point. They're not concerned with what we want. That's the problem. This has all been some psychopathic, demonic, satanic design for many, many years. It's these evil individuals that believe the world should be a certain way, and they don't take our thoughts and needs into consideration, unfortunately.
I forgot what I was going to say. I had a good one too, man. That sucks.
let me finish that point. So
have it.
Really, it's we're being led to the slaughter in a sense. And then you get into that situation where you're like, okay, is this truly leading to the return of Christ? Like this, what we're experiencing right now? There's that, because we don't know the time or the hour, right? So that could come 100 years from now, maybe. And I do believe, because there's a lot of things that haven't happened yet. All right, we have a lot of things in Revelations that haven't occurred, so it doesn't seem like the end is anytime soon. Right. So what do we do in the meantime? We don't just sit and wait for Christ. We actually have to participate in this battle. It's a spiritual battle, of course, but it's also a battle of information, right? It's a battle of knowledge. That's why we have censorship right now. So it's important that God's warriors, God's soldiers speaks the truth. We have to speak the truth. We have to get out there and talk about these things. We have to rationalize some of these things, especially for those who are lost. We can't just sit back and let these guys do this. I strongly believe in Christian families. I believe in Christian communities. And I believe that's what God would want us to do in this time, to worship him, of course, wait on him, but still fight for the truth, fight for for his glory. And I think the only thing we truly can do at this moment, aside from civil disobedience, of course, that we've been practicing, is to make families, build strong communities to our best ability. I understand it's very difficult today. But try to hold on to some of these traditional, what we would call American values, because they do exist, regardless of what anyone wants to tell you. Our country is not perfect. No country is perfect. We have a checkered past. Many countries do. but we do have a culture. We do have a history of Christian ethics. There is some true, I'd say, community in this country, right? And it's transracial. It's cross racial, right? It's not white, it's not black, it's all of us. We're all Americans here, right? And I think they want us to get away from that idea because the nation state has to be destroyed. And if you read scripture, what does God always talk about? Nations, the importance of nations. What did he do to the towers? What did he do to the Tower of Babel? Right? He doesn't want this. He doesn't want us to support a global order or some type of universal system. I think nations are very important. So we're in a tight situation. We're in a tight situation, and I don't know where to go outside of speaking the gospel, reminding people where we're at, and trying to promote Christian values.
Well, that's the thing. That's what I did want to say. That was the smart thing I had to tell you. All these people walking around with their masks, they're holding on to, if I just do what they say, the vaccine will come out. And even though they've been telling us life will never go back, no matter what, we've even got health authorities telling them that COVID will never be gone, which if you bother to crack a book, a virus isn't a never-ending thing that just goes on forever. They're very, very seasonal. And actually, at the base of that, it's just your body. But I'm not going to get into that. They don't even look at it like that. They just want the material. They want Amazon. They want to watch their television shows. They want to get their thumbs up and their likes because television and by a smaller proxy, these black mirrors, these scrying mirrors were all developed so that the lights, the colors, the flashes, the frequencies literally simulated heroin, the worst drugs to people, and the likes trigger it just like shooting up. People don't want to let go of that. The people that are actually facing this for what it is do know there's a God and that this life isn't all there is. I think that's the big void that you can't, I don't know how these people are going to suddenly come to God through their mask and standing in line and jumping in hoops and wearing shields and everything else. And God forbid, when that vaccine's presented, I just had a doctor that I mirrored yesterday, and she's saying, she's a medical doctor saying the exact same thing about this, that this is unlike any vaccine humanity's ever seen, because it is unlike any vaccine. It's going to change your DNA. It's going to be upgradable from a distance, like your cell phone. Who knows if it's going to completely wipe your memory? Who knows what this is going to do, because it's never been done before. You know what I'm saying? And these people are going to line up for it, man. They're going to line up for it. And I hear you, no vaccine. I hear you. But sure seeing a lot of people doing exactly what they're told just so they can go along and get along. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's one of the most frustrating parts is the great majority of the population is they just want their things. They just
I'm hip. I like things too, man. I'm guilty of it.
Life back, and I get it, man. We have been privileged as first world citizens, American Westerners, we've lived this type of experience, and I do understand that there's programming in that as well. There's culture in that as well. There's identity that is directly tied to this type of living, this existence. Our existential understanding is very specific in a way that describes a certain way of living, a lifestyle, social norms, human capital, all of these things. So I get it. But at the same time, it also shows their love for the world. It shows their obsession with self, and it shows their denial of God. And of course, this all has to do with the great separation. Christ is bringing a sword. There are the non-believers and believers. We understand where all of this is going. But who's to say that people aren't going to come to Christ during this time? People that knew me before I was a Christian probably would have never imagined me being a Christian today. And
I might fall in that same category.
Right? So you never know who's going to come to Christ, at which point this will happen. And I feel now is the time for us to at least assist in that battle. because it's it's that time. And if you see things politically right now, they're all going in the direction of this satanic, anti-American one world government, one world order. And it's creepy. I don't know if there's going to be an election. I can't imagine there being one based on how
Oh,
things are looking right now.
they're setting us up for the big one, dude.
Yeah, there's something big coming, man.
Oh, no
Something
doubt.
real
It's
big.
September 11th is right around the corner, man. I mean, they've been so out in the open with everything. I can't imagine they're not going to do something on September 11th and go, look at it was, pick one. China, North Korea, maybe it was Iran. Iran is, according to the mainstream, Iran is days away from a nuclear weapon. That is the most. I talk to people via email that live in Iran. They're like, dude, this is actually a nice country. You guys don't even see any of it. I'm like, I've seen some of it. I get you. But yeah, they're going to pull something and people are going to fall for it just like always. But here's the thing. I was watching the comments while Days was talking. Myself, and I know I say Mike Decker a lot, but I spent a month at his house and a month before at his house. We're continuing to move forward as though we're just living life and not doing as they're saying. We're not hiding in a bunker or freaking out or prepare yourself, be ready. But the most important thing is stay grounded in the word of God and try. And this is a situation where it's take my advice. I ain't using it. Try not to hate the people that you see that are doing all these new normal guidelines and such, because it just drives me insane. But still, try to have some hope. As hard, I mean, I can't even say that without laughing a little bit, but try to have some hope and remember at the end of the day, we win. They're going to win originally. They're going to have their time, but keep one foot in the grass. That's what I've always said. I've never said that. I just saw Claire say that, and I'm repeating it. So,
Well said. Yes, you're correct.
you know what I mean? I mean, just you can't completely, totally throw the towel in, because if you listen to the mainstream, there is no hope.
Well, that's nihilism. That's nihilism, and that's nihilism is simply put, it's just believing in nothing. There's no purpose or meaning to life. So why do anything, right? There's nothing you can do. So just give up, right? And just indulge in hedonistic lifestyles. Just live for pleasure, right? Because nothing really matters. The world's ending anyways. This nihilistic new age perspective is what is popular. And it's being perpetuated throughout these younger generations. And unfortunately, these younger generations are systematically changing our reality. We see it on the news. You see it in the major cities. Now, of course, it's blown out of proportion. It's completely misrepresented through mainstream media. But I'm going to tell you, one that lives very near some of these areas, literally right next door, there's real war going on in some of these urban areas. These kids are out here. They're destroying property. They're terrorizing communities. This is not a game. People are being physically assaulted. Now, I do see that there's some psyops going on. I'm going to say this might be controversial, but I have a feeling that this recent shooting is a massive psyop. I'm not saying it didn't happen, right? But there's something extremely controlled about this. How is a guy going to kill someone on camera, shoot them dead on camera, and then get interviewed by Vice magazine before he's taken in? I mean, come on. This whole thing is just.
Oh, you sound like one of those crazy conspiracy theorists. Come on, man. You can shoot people. It's the new normal. You can shoot people now, and then you give you a little while to do interviews, and then when you get a chance, swing by jail if it hasn't been defunded, because Massachusetts just announced today, because Massachusetts is a little California. They just announced that they're going to replace, I think it was 13 or 26. You got to love the numerology.
Oh, yeah.
Police officers with mental health workers.
Oh, no.
Oh, that'll be perfect. Clearly, they've been trained. There's been a transition. It'll be great. But it's happening. You can't have police. You can't have local law enforcement, because at any time the sheriff could wake up and start deputizing people, and that could be a problem. But fortunately, they don't have to worry about it, because it's all going to plan right now. And yeah, Ohio did release resettlement camps for people that are considered carriers or people that think like us. That's legit. I did read that. That's going through their democracy mill right now. So
Yeah, it's just chaos magic, you know, taking away the cops, especially in urban cities, urban areas that truly rely on cops to function with some sense of stability. Taking cops out of these areas, defunding these areas is extremely dangerous. What you're going to create is literal community warfare, and gangs are going to pop up left and right, and you're going to have serious issues. And I think that's part of the goal. They want these proxy warrior groups, these proxy armies, to systematically destroy the urban centers of the United States, because the urban centers are where the industry is at. It's where the large part of the influential economies are at, and it's where the influential cultures are at. Outside of these large urban areas are the more quiet aspects of American culture, which tend to be the Christian familial areas, the more rural areas where people are living the traditional or slower life, where things are a little more simple and more wholesome. And I would argue in many cases more healthy. Not to say they're perfect, there's chaos everywhere, but this type of
it's a
life,
human condition, man. It's a
yes, of
human
course.
condition.
Of course, but these types of communities, this type of lifestyle is antithetical to this new smart technological social grid technology crap that's coming, man. It's they want to get rid of this, and I think that's why they're burning a lot of places up, because they want to force people into apartments. They want to force people out of their acreage. They want to force people out of their homes, force them into these little temporary apartments, and then say, hey, well, we're building these new affordable condos in this urban area, and they're going to be affordable. And guess what? They have all this smart fancy technology, and you could move right in and have yourself a nice little 400 square foot box to live.
A tiny home. You think that was just a coincidence that they made that show popular? Hey, let's go live in a shoebox. It'll be awesome. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And who are they targeting with the tiny home culture? Of course, Gen Z, the
You
millennials,
bet.
all of these liberal, progressive, know nothings. They're targeting these large populations, which tend to dominate the urban areas. Okay. And if we see the urban areas being the most influential areas, then that would mean that these individuals living in them are the most influential, meaning we have to pay attention to these nutbags. We have to see what they're doing, and they are systematically changing our environment. They're changing the culture, and they're being used to do so. It's part of a proxy war. That's what this is. The revolution will be live streamed. Basically, it is being live streamed. And
You bet. You might
it's
have to make a T-shirt that says that, brother.
I know, I'm thinking about it because I've said it many times. Even
I might make you one and send it to you, or just bring it to you. One of the two.
that'd be awesome. And that's what's happening right now. This is a LARP. This is a live action role play. You see these kids out here in their little black block uniforms throwing, Molotov cocktails and their umbrellas. It's all a reified video game. That's what this is to these kids, man. They're not.
Hey, well, everything makes sense now. Why are video games so violent? Why are television? I mean, it's all been a slow process, but they're done. And now we're seeing the fruits of their labors, basically.
Yes, the French philosopher Stiegler, he actually recently died. He's a progressive, but he definitely has some interesting anti-technology work. Very, very thick and annoying writing style, but he makes some really good points about television and how television of the 70s and the 80s, and he uses Sesame Street as an example, has kind of primed children to move up into different forms of media, and preparing us for a lifestyle of media through different types of entertainment. And what this does, he makes these really good arguments for the destruction and the destabilization of attention. And most of this work is describing how especially in the Western world, our attention, our capacity for attention is being corroded and deconstructed to the point that we don't really think properly anymore. We're kind of taken by habit, and we become kind of this ADD society. And it's an interesting book. And I think it's very true in many ways, and that's why we're seeing these kids behave this way, because they've been kind of raised on this type of alpha wave media. And of course, with the horrible education system, they've never really learned how to learn. They've just been conditioned and programmed over their youth, and mix that with the video games, and mix that with the television and now the internet and social media. These kids are not living in reality anymore. They're living
At
in
all.
somewhat of a hyper reality. And this was something Baudrillard, another French philosopher, talks a lot about in Simulacra Simulations. He talks about this idea of the hyper reality and simulacra, where actually, I think Matrix took a lot from this book. He didn't like the film at all. He didn't think they represented his ideas properly. But anyways, this idea of simulacra, simulation, kids are living in somewhat of a simulation because they're one foot's in reality and the other's in the viral or the virtual reality. So if you have one foot in physical reality and one foot in the virtual world, what do you think your reality in your mind is going to be? It's gonna be a little bit of both. That's hyper reality. You're not really here. You're somewhere else at the same time, which is very disturbing.
It's crazy, man. It's like living in augmented reality right now. I couldn't help but pull up that Zuckerberg picture where he was recreating the 1984. That's what they want. They want to put everybody in their Agenda 21, Agenda 2030 cities. You're stacked and packed in tiny houses, and they will feed you the information that you need. And once in a while, your goggles will give your vaccine an upload to make sure that you're acting properly and giving off the proper amount of voltage, because you are now a human battery in the New World Order system. Welcome to the Matrix. Days, we've gone on for an hour and a half, and that's my limit. I'm tapping out. It's almost 10 o'clock here, and I got to get up early. So
right on, man. I always enjoy being on with you, man. Great.
Oh, without a doubt. Days of Noah's YouTube channel and his Patreon will be pinned below the comment section. I say Patreon because he puts good info out on there. I watch it every time it comes up. So there's that.
I appreciate that, man.
Yeah, no worries.
How we're surviving right now.
Right. It's getting absolutely, totally, completely ugly. So everybody in the chat, I appreciate you guys listening. Stay on it. Don't fall for just resist as much as humanly possible. Do you see what I'm saying? But keep some hope. Still live in this world, but don't be of it. That's all there is to it. Richie from Boston, Days of Noah, and we are out.